You close the door. You turn off your phone, or at least you tell yourself you will. The room goes quiet. No one needs anything from you. No one is watching. And for the first time all day, your shoulders actually drop. This feels good. Really good. Almost suspiciously good. Better, honestly, than most of the things you did with other people today. But here's the strange part. The same system in your brain that's rewarding you for this silence was never designed to let you stay in it for long. And for a growing number of people, that warning system has gone almost completely quiet. You probably think enjoying time alone is just a personality thing. Some people are introverts, some are extroverts. And you happen to like your own company. That's what most people assume. But researchers who study solitude will tell you something stranger. Liking silence isn't the odd part. The odd part is how easily that liking can turn into something your ancestors would have found almost incomprehensible. Because for nearly all of human history, being alone wasn't peaceful. It was one of the most dangerous positions a person could be in. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent decades studying the size and structure of early human social groups, and what he found reshapes how you should think about solitude entirely. Human brains, he discovered, evolved specifically to track and manage relationships within groups of roughly 150 people. Not more, not fewer. That number, now known as Dunbar's number, wasn't arbitrary. It was the largest group your ancestors could realistically keep track of, cooperate with, and depend on for survival. Hunting required numbers. Defense required numbers. Even raising a single child required far more hands than two parents could offer. A person who wandered off from that group, even for a short stretch, wasn't relaxing. They were exposed. No one to watch their back. No one to share food if the hunt failed. No one to help if a predator showed up at the wrong moment. Solitude in that world was almost never something a healthy person chose on purpose. So why would your brain reward isolation with anything other than fear? The answer comes from psychologist John Cacioppo, who spent much of his career studying loneliness at a biological level. Cacioppo proposed something researchers now call the sentinel hypothesis. The idea is that loneliness itself evolved as a kind of alarm system, not unlike hunger or thirst. When your ancestors drifted too far from the group for too long, their bodies didn't just feel sad about it. Their nervous system shifted into a heightened state of alert. Cortisol rose. Sleep became lighter and more fragmented, as if some part of the brain expected to need to react at any moment. Attention sharpened toward possible threats, and trust in unfamiliar faces dropped. This wasn't a flaw. It was the entire point. Discomfort was the mechanism pulling a vulnerable, exposed person back toward the safety of the group before something worse happened. That system is still fully installed in you today. But something about it has changed, and that change is where this story gets genuinely strange. Your solitude right now, the quiet room, the closed door, the turned-off phone, doesn't actually resemble your ancestors' exposure on the open savanna at all. You're not vulnerable. You're behind a locked door in a heated room, with food a few steps away and help a phone call away if you truly needed it. Psychologist Thuy-Vy Nguyen has spent years researching exactly this distinction, drawing a sharp line between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness, her research shows, is what happens when isolation is imposed on you, when connection is missing and you have no control over it. Solitude is different. It's chosen. It's temporary. And critically, your brain can tell the difference. Chosen solitude doesn't trigger the sentinel alarm at all. Instead, it does almost the opposite. Arousal drops. The nervous system downshifts into a state closer to rest than threat. Reflection deepens. For a brain that spends most of its day monitoring, negotiating, and performing for other people, a locked door reads not as danger, but as an off switch finally being flipped. And that's exactly what makes it so quietly seductive. Think about what that means for your actual life, right now, today. Canceling plans at the last minute because staying home sounds so much more appealing. Choosing a quiet night with a screen over an uncertain evening with people. Letting a message sit unanswered because responding requires more energy than you feel like spending. A weekend that quietly turns into 2 days without a single face-to-face conversation, and somehow that still feels easier than arranging one. None of these choices feel like danger. Each one on its own feels like self-care, like a well-earned rest. And in small doses, that's exactly what it is. The problem isn't any single quiet evening. The problem is that, unlike hunger, which grows sharper and more insistent the longer you ignore it, modern solitude often doesn't come with an equally strong pullback in the other direction. Your ancestors' environment made prolonged isolation nearly impossible to sustain comfortably. Yours doesn't. Food arrives at your door. Entertainment is infinite and endlessly available. Work happens through a screen. Every basic need that once forced you back toward other people can now be met without seeing another human face at all. Sociologist Sherry Turkle has spent years studying what happens when technology steps into that gap. Her research describes something she calls being alone together, a state where you're surrounded by digital contact, messages, notifications, feeds full of other people's lives, while your actual physical sense of connection quietly starves. A text feels like contact. A like feels like being seen. And in a shallow way, they are. But Turkle's interviews kept turning up the same pattern. People increasingly preferred the edited, low-risk version of connection a screen provides over the messier, more demanding version that comes from being in a room with another person. It isn't that technology creates loneliness out of nothing. It's that it offers something that feels almost identical to connection, just real enough to quiet the alarm a little, without ever fully answering it. This is where Cacioppo's research turns even more unsettling. He found that loneliness doesn't just sit quietly in the background once it takes hold. It actively reshapes how you perceive the people around you. Prolonged isolation makes the brain more likely to interpret neutral behavior as rejection, more likely to expect disappointment from others, more likely to withdraw preemptively rather than risk being let down. In other words, the longer solitude goes unchecked, the more convincing the case your own mind builds for staying in it. It isn't a single dramatic decision to disappear. It's 1,000 small, reasonable-feeling choices, each one making the next one easier, until reaching out starts to feel less like a comfort and more like a chore. So here's the twist that makes this stranger still. The ancient alarm system built to pull you back toward people before isolation became dangerous is still sitting inside you. But it was calibrated for a world where isolation meant immediate, obvious risk: cold, hunger, predators. Your modern environment can quietly satisfy all of those risks while still leaving the deeper need, the actual social one, almost entirely unmet. The alarm that should be going off has very little left to react to. Your body is safe. Your stomach is full. And so the sentinel, built for a world of physical danger, often stays asleep long after real disconnection has already set back in. None of this means solitude is something to fear. Chosen, temporary, restorative alone time is doing exactly what it evolved to do, giving an overstimulated, endlessly social brain the rest it occasionally needs. The danger was never the quiet room itself. It's mistaking a door that's meant to be closed for a while for a door that's meant to stay closed indefinitely. So tonight, when you close that door again and the room goes quiet, notice how good it feels. Let it feel good. That reaction is ancient, and it isn't lying to you. But somewhere in the back of your mind, keep space for the older, quieter question your ancestors never had the luxury of ignoring. Not whether you're comfortable being alone right now, but whether, underneath that comfort, some part of you is still, very faintly, waiting to be found.